Hello and welcome to the Not Ready for Primetime podcast. We're Gary Seath and Brad Robinson.
And you're not.
This week we're talking about Season 3, Episode 14, with host Jill Clayburgh and musical guest Eddie Money. This show originally aired on March 18th, 1978. Brad, Jill Clayburgh's back.
Yes, she is. Your girl. You're a big Jill Clayburgh fan, aren't you? I know.
I had to look up. I knew Jill Clayburgh hosted the show. I remembered that much.
Did you have to look her up again? You had to look her up again? Really?
I went back and looked at the old episode and I was like, oh, I remember why I hated this episode. And it wasn't just Jill Clayburgh. It's not all her fault. No,
she didn't do a lot the first time. It was a low ranked episode by both of us. I went back and looked as well, but I remember she wasn't in a lot. I looked at, she was in like 2 sketches. There was one of those ones where you had a bunch of pre-tapes, and I think there was a special guest, and probably the singer probably did 5 tunes. She wasn't highlighted the first time.
No, she was not. That is for certain.
Which after the second time, maybe not a bad move.
No, that's exactly what I was thinking.
I think we may have been a little too rash in our judgment season 1.
Yeah. Coming into this episode, I thought, well, maybe it will be better because she's back and she knows what's going on and they liked her enough to bring her back.
Of course. Yes.
And I was let down, disappointed yet again.
Yeah. Maybe there was like a bit of thanks for doing season 1. Because,
sure.
Remember, so season 1, she was kind of on the rise. She hadn't done a lot of movies yet. She had been mostly a Broadway actress. I think she had done one movie, and we had mentioned, so in between, she had already done 2 fairly big movies, one being Silver Streak, I think. And she just had a 3rd movie come out like the week or 2 before, big movie, Unmarried Woman, Paul Mazursky film, which would go on to be her Oscar-nominated role, and nominated for 3 Oscars. So she's got stuff going on. And again, she's somebody who did show up in season 1. So she's back. She's got something to do. She's kind of a big deal. Ish.
Ish. Yes.
And she's a friend of the show.
Right. Apparently.
Anyway, cold open.
Should we just get into it? Is that what you're saying?
I guess yes.
All right. So the cold open finds Garrett dressed as a leprechaun, as it was the day after St. Patrick's Day, and he is singing "Oh Danny Boy" with 3 backup singers behind him. And very quickly, my immediate thought was, I wonder when the chyrons are going to start.
Of course, you're right. Of course.
And here they come. And the chyrons this time were written by Garrett, or so it says. And it starts out with very much like, every time I sing, they put on chyrons. So I insisted that this time I get to write the chyrons.
So he finally is the one writing the chiron as opposed to somebody else.
Right. Yeah. And I thought Garrett did a beautiful job singing "Oh Danny Boy." He sounded wonderful. The chyrons were fine. I thought the end was funny, where he says, I'm running out of things to say, but whatever. And I'm just going to sing here. And this should wrap it up. And if I have to hold the note longer, I will. But it turns out that the writing was longer than the note. So he
takes a breath.
Takes a big breath. Yeah.
To keep holding that note. No, I agree. The end was a nice touch.
And it seemed like the audience enjoyed his singing, because when he did finally end, there was a nice applause. And then it made it kind of hard to even hear him say "Live from New York" at that moment. Yeah, it was a different open. It was fun. Again, same gag with the chyrons, but they mixed it up a little bit.
Yeah, different take on an old gag, which I don't think we've seen in a while. The Garrett singing Chiron gag. It's been a minute. Everything you just said. Okay, not bad. It's exactly what it was. I agree with you. I like the little touch at the end with the holding of the note and the breath. It was funny. I mean, rare, very rare. Garrett led cold open.
Yeah, that's
I think
true.
This is really the second one ever, right?
Yeah.
So this time he's tied with Paul Schaefer and President Gerald Ford for the number of people who've only said it solo once.
You mean coming into this episode?
Coming in.
Okay.
You want to know a sad fact? Do you know from the cast, as of this point in the show's history, who has yet to say live from New York solo?
Jane?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Goddamn sin, no?
Absolutely.
And it takes a while.
Yeah.
It takes a while before she gets it.
That's a bummer.
Anywho.
Well, that leads us into the monologue where there was a huge applause for Jill Clayburgh.
I agree. A surprisingly big response.
Right? I assumed that the stage manager had the crowd going.
Must have. Must have.
Jill Clayburgh comes down. She references her last appearance immediately and talks about how in that appearance, she did not have much of a monologue. So in the last episode she was on, season 1, episode 15, I think.
It was the Don Pardo one, right?
Yes. She tells the story of Don Pardo helping her get adjusted to TV and live TV because she wasn't familiar with it.
Yes.
And she's telling the story of like, oh, he picked me up in the car, and he would interrupt and say, not just any car, Jill. And then say what kind of car. And then he took me to his house, not just any house, Jill. And he did the whole game show. Yeah. Prize. Gag. Yeah.
Through the entire monologue. That was the monologue.
Yes.
Right.
And Brad, I would have paid a lot of money to hear that monologue again rather than whatever this was.
I mean, she tried to be funny by saying how she wasn't funny before, but wanted to be funny now, but then realized she wasn't funny, but would be funny the next time.
Right.
But it really wasn't that funny.
Yep. This is you.
Like I learned my lesson. And then after the week, I realized I didn't learn my lesson and I have nothing prepared. But next time I come back, I'll be ready. And it was just odd and rambling.
It was pretty quick, too. I mean, it was rambling. No, I know. It didn't feel quick because it was rambling, but it was.
And thus ends our column of prose. It was quick.
Also, our column of praise. It was quick. That's all.
It was quick.
She does throw to a commercial. We get a repeat of the Royal Deluxe 2 commercial.
Still funny.
It's still funny. Still
good.
We saw that earlier this season.
Yeah, classic Franken and Davis piece. It's great. It is funny.
Yeah. And from there, we go back to the Olympia Cafe, where again...
Gary, real quick, before we go just jumping ahead a little bit, when we get to Best Bits, is one allowed to vote for a repeat? Just want to ask right now.
It may be necessary.
Okay, great. Just want to check.
The crowd loved that we were at the Olympia Cafe.
Well, they waste no time. Right off the bat, they fade in. John picks up the phone. Cheeseburger. Like 10 seconds into the sketch, they dive into that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they dive headfirst all the way in.
Yeah.
Honestly, even this, I was like, it took me a minute to warm up to this because it just felt like the same joke over and over, except Lorraine is training a new waitress who is Jill, and that causes some, whatever, not tension, but it gives us something to do here. And then Jane comes in and asks Bill if she can put up a poster, and he's just shaking his head because he still doesn't understand English.
Goddamn Bill.
He is really funny doing that.
He is funny. He is good. At least they acknowledge or recognize at this time, or at one point, or during that interchange, Gilda looks over to her and says, he doesn't understand English. All he knows is cheeseburger.
Yeah.
So they at least acknowledge the fact that
right.
Yeah.
And then Gilda has a joke she wants to tell him and has Dan translate it for her. And Bill is just confused.
Still doesn't get it. Yeah.
And then I guess the culmination gag really is that John has a problem with Jill as this new waitress because she doesn't say cheeseburger. She says cheeseburger. And then it's just the two of them going back and forth yelling cheeseburger, cheeseburger. And Dan's flipping the grill, yelling cheeseburger, cheeseburger, cheeseburger.
I mean, this is literally this, as you said, the same exact jokes somehow regurgitated, somewhat new.
Yeah.
It did have some moments. There's a nice early on, Gilda, we kind of now they are establishing, I guess, this now that they've decided to make this reoccurring, Gilda plays obviously the regular. So she kind of had that vibe the first time. She lays into that a little bit more this time. John has a nice line where he's like, I like you. You eat fast. Because he's all about turnover.
Right.
I kind of like that. You mentioned we really see the host in this when Lorraine comes and she plays her waitress fantastic again and trying to show her how to put the orders in. So Lorraine saying cheeseburger, Jill saying cheeseburger, both of them cause Dan to say cheeseburger. And it's like it's the same joke we saw the first time.
Right.
That she comes back again and at the end when she starts having her rant and it's like you mentioned, John and her cheeseburger, and it's again the same thing we saw. What I did think was funny then, as you mentioned, so Jill just she can't take it anymore. She's like, I'm out of here. And as she's doing her rant at the end where she walks behind the counter and goes to get her jacket, like, all it is cheeseburger. She's like yelling to herself.
Right.
You hear Dan in the background.
I can't stand this place. This place is nuts. I'm just getting out of this place. It's crazy. Cheeseburger.
Pepsi.
Cheeseburger. Pepsi.
Pepsi.
Oh, hey, it's okay. It's okay. Hey, everything's going to be fine now. Can somebody get her a glass of water?
No water, Pepsi.
All right, Pepsi.
But then even that, they repeat the gag with the menu where he looks to Bill, he says Pepsi, and he's just standing there staring at Jill Clayburgh. And
right.
John grabs the menu, Pepsi. It's like everything just felt so forcefully regurgitated.
Yes.
It was just they found a way to repeat all the same old gags.
They did get everyone in this piece. Everyone in the cast, Jill.
Yeah.
Schiller's in there. Don Novello's in there. Who else? I guess like a bunch of the writers are patrons or diners. So that's a plus.
And I mean, let's be honest. The first was so goddamn good.
Oh, exactly.
There's no way you're going to live up to it, especially with this host. And it's not a knock, really. I don't mean it as a knock on Jill Clayburgh, but you need a host that brings something to it. You need a Buck. You need a Steve Martin, an Elliot Gould. Like you need a host that's going to do something, not just recite the lines you write.
It's funny because my thought was that Jill Clayburgh didn't really bring much to this. And I felt like if she and Jane had flip-flopped parts and Jane were the trainee who then argues with Belushi, like there would just be a little more there. Like Jane brings more attitude and I guess anger, right? We've definitely seen that. And she could have brought that to this to like cause conflict with John's character rather than Jill, who just seemingly got frustrated and quit, which is exactly what John said earlier in the sketch she was going to do. He's like, she'll never last.
Yeah.
So and again, partial to Jane, certainly. But I thought, I felt like she could have done more with that role.
Yeah. I mean, I think, and I'm sure this will come up again this episode, but I feel there's a lot of canceling out between Jane and Jill Clayburgh. Very similar to Candice Bergen in a little, but Candice elevates it a little bit more from when she takes over for Jane. Yes. But I feel like Jane and Jill Clayburgh are just virtually interchangeable, but because Jane's so good at this, it's like you want her more. Like you want it, totally. like that would have been like, to your point, that role would have been better as Jane because it's a great Jane role.
I will say I was surprised how much Jane and all of the women, the female cast, are in this episode.
Jane is in it a lot. Right before Update, when I realized she was in whatever sketch and she was in Update next, I was like, Jane is doing a lot of work.
Jane was doing a lot. Gilda was in a lot. Lorraine was in a bunch too. And all of them are in the next sketch with Jill in Sybil Part 3. So this is a take on the Sally Field movie. Was it a TV movie, I think, right?
It was like a 2-part TV movie. Yeah. I don't know if they were special events or whatever the hell they were back then, but TV movie.
Yeah. So in the film, from what I understand, Sally Field plays a woman with multiple personalities. Joanne Woodward plays her doctor. And so this is Sybil 3, where Jill Clayburgh is cast as the doctor this time. And she's going to bring Sybil in. She's talking about in her dictaphone about her multiple personalities. And then she comes in and it's Jane, Gilda, and Lorraine all come in. And you learn that they are all named Sybil. And Lorraine and Jane are trying to tell the doctor that they're 3 different people, and Gilda's playing that vegged out character again.
Yeah, and Gilda's Sybil is the name of the Sybil character from the movie.
She's the Sybil. Yeah.
Right.
So like the whole gag is that she had all of these women named Sybil in, and the doctor took them all as multiple personalities, and Jane and Lorraine are the final 2 standing with Gilda, who's the actual Sybil.
Yeah, it started at like 15 or 16, and now they're down to the 3. Like these are the last 3 that are still showing up to this session, which I couldn't figure this out. I'm like, why? Like one of my notes, like, why are these 2 still here? Like, why do they keep coming back to these?
Right.
Sessions?
Well, they even said that at one point, right? Like maybe they were smarter than us or something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then Jane and Lorraine. There is a good physical gag where she tells them to get on the couch.
Yeah.
And then they can't all 3 fit on the couch. So first Gilda falls off and then Jane falls off, and they both take pretty hard falls.
Gilda's was pretty. I wasn't expecting Jane's. Gilda's was great. Yeah, she gets on, and then Lorraine and Jane, and those 2 pushed Gilda off, and Gilda's drop was great. Gilda physical humor as per usual.
Yeah, it was good. And then why am I still talking about this? Jane and Lorraine leave, and then whatever. And then the doctor thinks they're cured, tells Sybil she can leave, and then she calls in, I forget, Deborah or some other name.
Yeah.
And then 17 women come in, and Gilda gets caught up in them again as the vegged out thing. The only thing I enjoyed was that physical gag on the couch.
Gilda's humor worked.
Yeah.
And I agree. That's about it. Whether it was her playing that, they gave her a name. It's like, forget, it's like Chloe Feynman, or that's not her name, but that's the act. That's the girl on the show now. But she has that character, and like, so like just watching Gilda's mannerisms and stuff was funny. The physical humor on the couch, funny. Once Jill Clayburgh thinks she has cured her, she like throws her jacket on, tries to get her out the door. She walks into the wall, opens the door, goes out. I did laugh out loud when she calls in Deborah and the 15 ladies come in, and you see Gilda's character like being like shoveled back, like she can't push through the mob of women, and then she just sits back on their laps and joins the crowd of Deborahs.
Right.
But that's it. I mean, it's other than Gilda, it's like, what in the hell is this?
Yeah.
I get it's timely. I was excited from the start. I mean, you see the women walk in. I was like, great. Off the bat, here's a chance for the women to shine.
Right.
You know, not surprisingly, I think written by Ann Beats and Rosie Schuster, Marilyn Suzanne Miller. Again, sort of timely. Again, it's based on something that had been out recently. So the elements there make you think it will work. It just really doesn't.
Yeah. And I don't know if part of it is that you would have to know the movie Sybil to maybe think it's funny, but I don't think so.
I don't think so. You know what? I hate to say it. I just don't think Jill Clayburgh is that good in this sketch.
I agree.
Right off the bat, I was reminded of her playing the guidance counselor of her one of 2 sketches the last time.
No, it was exactly the same thing. I totally agree with you.
Gilda's decent. She's, fine. Lorraine and Jane, they don't have a lot to do, but they did what they needed to do. Like they didn't I don't know. It's just, it felt like the person anchoring this sketch and really running it is the doctor. And Jill Clayburgh just couldn't steer that ship.
Yeah. I will say they've been so far tonight. We've seen a lot of the cast and the crew in these first 2 sketches. And it keeps going in the next sketch with bad one-man theater.
Yeah.
Which it's an evening with, and Dan comes on, of course, and he explains one-man theater being, I like how he said it, and I didn't write it down, but it was something like, someone comes on stage and pretends to be someone else for 2.5 hours and just talks by themselves straight.
Oh, when he tried to explain what one-man theater is, like the new craze that was happening now is this one-man theater. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny because my immediate thought was Hal Holbrook and the Mark Twain that he did forever. Yeah. And so that's the first thing we see is Tom Schiller as Hal Holbrook as Mark Twain. And he starts right into his monologue. And then John comes on as Harry S. Truman, and he's talking over Schiller now. And then Bill comes on as Edgar Allan Poe, keeps talking. Garrett as Paul Robeson keeps talking. Jane as Eleanor Roosevelt. And then finally, they're all just talking over one another. And Dan finally takes the megaphone out and has them stop. That was it.
Yeah. I think the joke tries its best.
Yeah.
It never hits that this is so bad it's funny piece. Like the really good bad sketches, they're so bad they're funny.
I felt like it was too fast for that.
It just felt like a lot of chaos, honestly, because it was, again, 5 people talking over each other, 5 random one-man shows that overlap each other. That's all it was.
Right.
There's not always a lot to the bad sketches. They're not supposed to be.
Right.
But this one, to me, just felt extremely weak.
I don't know. I like the idea of taking one-man theater and turning it into a bad piece by making it multiple people. Like, I don't know, just that general concept I liked. It just felt like the execution of it had to be rushed or was rushed, and it didn't work because of that.
I mean, listen, we could waste time and sit here on how to make this sketch better, and we'll never come up with it.
The only thing that could make it better to me really is to bring on Eddie Money to play some Baby Hold On. I really enjoyed this. I was like, oh, I like Eddie Money more than I thought I would.
Really?
Yeah.
Ooh, I had the reverse reaction.
Really?
Okay. Yes. I spent my time trying to figure out what kind of drug cocktail Eddie Money was on during this performance. Because he just looked out of it.
Sure. That is true. And I guess for me, I was thinking of more of like I really enjoy Eddie Money's catalog more than I probably thought I did.
Well, he's not Boss Skaggs. I mean, I understand why you think that.
Yeah. I'm sure Thomas Senna right now is writing a list of, maybe he'll send me his Eddie Money
5
playlist. Essential
Eddie Money songs.
There's more than 5. That's the thing.
Oh, that's the problem. There's just shockingly, you're like, God damn it, Eddie. Jesus. I don't know. I thought it was fine. I don't know. I thought I would enjoy this more going in. Everybody knows Baby Hold On.
Yeah.
It's like the first single off his debut album from the year before. Which would be his highest selling album of all time. And this is one of his biggest tunes.
Yeah.
I think it was like almost a top 10 hit. So I was like, okay, Baby Hold On. Like, I like this song. I'm into this performance.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I can't rate it above fine. I didn't hate it, but I did not necessarily enjoy it.
No, I liked it. I liked this performance.
It felt a bit, I don't know, muted, toned down.
I mean, I can see that, but it's also like you have to take into account sometimes too the space that they're playing in.
Do you mean the new set they have, the new garage set?
Yeah, that too.
Was that a new set, right?
I think it was new last week. I think we saw it last week. But yes, it's fairly new.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll get into more Eddie Money talk later in the night. Because
do you know that in a couple of years, Eddie Money finds himself singing backup on Kenny Loggins' I'm All Right? You may know it more as the theme to Caddyshack.
Yeah.
Yeah, he sings backup on that tune.
Huh. Because they're friends? Like, how did that happen?
I think he just was a long way from Baby Hold On.
No. Eddie Money was still doing things in the 80s.
He did churn things out. He did churn things out to the 80s.
Yeah. Well, we get more Jane, as we talked about. She's back.
Mm-hmm.
This time doing a live commercial for Nutrifix, which is a breakfast for her family.
I don't know about your family, but here at our house, everybody's always in a hurry in the morning. I've tried every kind of instant breakfast, flakes, shakes, powders, and bars. But I could never find a truly nutritious instant breakfast fast enough for my active family. Until I found Nutrifix, America's fastest instant breakfast. The Nutrifix breakfast comes with injector and 5 flavored breakfast cartridges: vanilla, strawberry, chocolate, Swiss mocha, and lime. Each cartridge contains many essential nutrients plus 1,000 milligrams of dextroamphetamine sulfate for extra pep.
Hi, Mom. Gotta run. I'm late for the school bus.
Not so fast, young lady. You're not leaving here without your Nutrifix.
Swiss mocha. That's my favorite.
Hi, Mom. Hit me up. I love Nutrifix. I'm gonna take a couple for lunch.
Since I started my family on the Nutrifix breakfast plan, they've come to depend on it.
Hi, honey.
Hi.
Kids get off okay?
They sure did, thanks to
What a rush. I'll be able to drive to work without using my car now.
Bye, honey. I like this part the best, when I can sit down all by myself and have my own Nutrifix. Chocolate. I think I'll try the strawberry. Oh, the lime.
Get your family into the Nutrifix habit. Nutrifix Instant Breakfast Injector Plan. It's the breakfast you bang from Vitagen.
I like this one.
Yeah.
This felt very much original, like very original season 1 SNL. You know, it's live. It's a live solo to camera commercial. It's dark. It is funny. It's funny. It's dark. It's twisted. Like, my gut was like, oh, this has to be O'Donoghue. And I'm like, no. This is just somebody from like who's been there. Like this could have been anybody during season 1. Like it has that just really just twisted season 1 feel to it. And Jane is great in this.
Jane is great.
How great is Jane? I mean, she just pulls this off really
flawless.
Well, yeah. Just she's the only one who could do it. Just her persona and everything is perfect. And she has this face, you know, when she does the injections where her like mouth is a gap and she's just like, and she does it every time. It's like this bizarre, horrific face. And it's short, it's sweet, and she's perfect in it.
Yeah. It's silly. I like it. That's a good point. That is very much like first season. Yeah, that's good.
And this is the point where I noticed, I was like, because I knew updates coming up, and I'm just like, Jane is in a lot.
She is. Yeah. It's surprising.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, we go into weekend update. This to me was there was not much here, really. Roman Polanski joke, Frank Rizzo.
Top to bottom, there's not much here.
No. They throw to Lorraine, who once again is talking about coal mine safety with Al Franken. This time he's a safety inspector.
Yeah, I was like, are they going to mine the same old joke again?
No, they just dropped the mine on top of them this time. So he was there as the safety inspector, says the mine is great. It's it's in good shape. And then it immediately all collapses on top of them.
It kind of worked. I didn't mind. Yeah. I thought it was funny.
Yeah, it was fine. I thought it was fine. It wasn't anything I was like, oh, this is great.
It's like it's like the exact opposite of the last time they did this when she interviewed Al Franken. He was the coal miner that went on forever.
Yes.
This one, at least, like you had your one point and it ended and you got out.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah. Put them together and it's an average size sketch. And then we get Rosanna back again, talking about taxes, but not really.
Taxes.
This was a fine Rosanna Dana.
You go fine, do you?
Yeah, yes. No, I thought it was one of the better ones, I should say.
Really?
Yeah.
I had the exact opposite. I was like, this is the 5th time out. And for me, this is the first time it felt rough.
Well, what I liked was she has the bit about school where she sat next to, what was his name? Hernando Dana.
She had to sit, she's talking about odors and how she had to sit behind this boy who smelled bad. And for 8 years, she had to sit behind Fernando Rosanna Dando.
That's what it was.
And she has a line. I mean, there's a couple of lines. She has a line earlier where she puts on this blouse, but it's polyester. And the guy says something, your blouse smells like New Jersey.
Yeah. Yeah. It did feel long.
It was long.
Yeah.
And I just, it felt long and just, it wasn't as connecting as the other ones. Like I said, this is the first one for me. It felt rough. Like this one, I was like, ooh, this I feel like they missed. Should say though, this is the first time we see the person who wrote the letter into her is Mr. Richard Farter from New Jersey, Fort Lee, New Jersey, who is named after Alan Zweibel's brother-in-law, Zweibel, who wrote all these with her. But I don't know. I did not enjoy it nearly as much as you.
Yeah, I as much as I enjoy these.
Okay,
and that was it for week. It was I thought a weekend update.
It was. Yeah. I mean, they're always hard because they're so timely, but there wasn't a lot that stuck out. None of the correspondent pieces worked. And like I said, I think one of our weaker Rosanna Dennis. Speaking of weak, sadly, right?
Yeah. So we get John and Jill on a train, I think.
Yeah.
And basically they're having a conversation, and you learn from the conversation that John sees everything blurry. And the only line that I really liked in this was she said
I have
something
one as well.
Okay, let's see if
I have one line.
Mine was when she talks about him and he says, I know I'm ill-defined and blurry. I look in the mirror and I see that I'm ill-defined and blurry. That was the only one that I liked. What did you like?
He somehow starts talking about his wife, the only woman he ever thought was attractive, whatever, and he shows her a picture and he goes, she died in a car crash. I kind of blame myself. As if he was driving the car again. I don't know. Right. Yeah, that was the only line I thought was funny.
Yeah, and then he tries to move seats because she tried to share glasses with him. I'm not really sure why he did. Anyway, this sketch really goes nowhere except to say that John has poor vision and doesn't believe in eye doctors and glasses. I don't really know.
I got nothing.
If there was a sketch that I thought would not come back as a recurring sketch, it probably would have been Shower Mike. Like it would have been up there in my sketches that I was like, that was good. I enjoyed it. I'll never see it again, but I enjoyed what I saw. And they threw me for a loop this week.
Well, and then Jill Clayburgh came back to host.
So it starts with Gilda in the shower this time. And then Bill comes in to join her and he puts the soap on the rope microphone over his neck. And he invites their neighbor, John, in, who's been sleeping in their garage, and to tell jokes because Bill wanted him to feel better. And then he eventually invites John's wife, played by Jill, back. So all four of them are in the shower getting wet. Yep.
I like the idea. Like I actually did like that they tried to do this again because it was good. Bill was great the first time. I don't think for many reasons, I don't think this sketch works. You know, I remember we talked the first time when they did this with Buck, and we talked about how well it worked with Buck, as opposed to say having John or even Dan because they wouldn't play well against Bill.
Right.
I think we were pretty right on that one. So
yeah. See, we are right sometimes.
See, every once in a while we have. But I think what really worked for the first one was, without laughing, was the intimacy. Because that first sketch, it was like all in his head. You know, he created this to have a vehicle in which to call his wife and Buck out on it. Anyway, it's another one. Swing and a miss, sadly. Yeah. Just wasn't there. None of that joy of that first sketch came back.
Did you get joy from the next sketch coming back?
For like 30 seconds.
Okay. So it starts off with Jill in bed with a microphone and a wire running down the blanket, just blatantly.
It's live TV. Let it go.
I'm just saying. They use boom mics.
You're just out for blood in this episode. I see what's happening.
No. Well, maybe. And then we find out that she is having an affair with Beldar. And then we get the title of this episode is Coneheads on Earth. Is that right?
Whatever. Yeah.
Okay.
Great reveal, though. She's in bed, and then the camera pans to the entryway, and Beldar walks in. A decent Coneheads reveal.
Yeah. Yes. Wasn't expecting it. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. You were It was an unexpected reveal of this sketch.
Correct. Yeah. She wants to see him again. He says no. Turns out he's her driving teacher, of course. And then he goes home, and Jane Primat realizes that he's been out. This is the third meteor that he has had to follow this week.
Yeah, meteor. That's it.
Yeah. And then, Bill comes on as Ronnie to take Connie out to the movies, I think.
Ronnie's back.
Driving. Yeah.
He played Ronnie the very first Conehead sketch. That's the character he played to come in and take Connie out.
Right. And then he takes beers from them. He's like, "Oh, thanks for the brewskis," when he leaves.
There's like 3 6-packs with him.
Yeah. Turns out that Primat was also having an affair with some guy. Jerry. Yeah. Who called?
They finally took that sketch somewhere. Was that end?
I guess.
That's
sure.
To my, like, I enjoyed it for the first 30, 45, for the first minute because, I thought the intro was great. Jill Clayburgh's in bed. Oh, okay. Beldar is having an affair with an Earth woman. It's like they're still trying to do something new with the Coneheads. I got to give them credit. They're trying to do something with the characters.
Yeah.
But then once he got home, it was all the same old stuff. There was nothing new.
Right.
For 80% of the sketch until the very end when the Jerry call. I love that when she calls him out and he's trying to dig himself out of the hole and the phone rings. She's like, "Jerry, I told you never to call me here." And she hangs up the phone and he called out. I was like, finally it's going somewhere. And then they kind of rekindle and he tells her how no one gives Cone like you do. And they kind of get back. So I will say, I think this was an enjoyable sketch. It was still very weak, but I did enjoy it.
You're allowed to.
As weak as it was, perform. You know what was weak though? Did these cones look really bad to you on their heads?
Yes. Where they met their skin. It just looks like the adhesive was coming
Well, we
up.
mentioned like Jane's been in a lot, and Dan was, so like maybe they didn't have enough time as they normally would to put them on, but it did seem noticeably.
Dan hasn't been in much though. But
Update. I mean, it wasn't that long since Update.
I guess.
Anyway. As if the sketch wasn't bad enough, I'm staring there looking at cones and I'm like, "Ooh, really?"
Yeah, not the best application of cones.
Not since OJ have I seen a cone that bad.
Well, we get another ensemble piece with a lot of the cast in this one again. So this is Celebrity Crack Up, hosted by Jane. So she plays herself. Bill comes on as Tony Orlando again. We saw him as Tony Orlando a couple weeks ago. John as Robert Blake, Gilda as Claudine Langer, and Garrett as Richard Pryor, which really surprised me. Well,
maybe there's a reason for that. So I only say, so this sketch was originally written for the Chevy Chase episode a few weeks back. And this was one of the sketches where him and Bill were having issues with, which may have been one of the reasons why they didn't use it. So I was trying to figure out, like, where did Chevy fit in this sketch? So maybe Chevy was in there instead of Garrett.
Yeah.
And that's why Garrett seemed a little out of place, because they needed somebody to fill that spot. And that's where they decided to go.
Right. They didn't want to rehash his Sherman Helmsley impression.
It was either Garrett or Gilda, because, I mean, they decided to double down on Claudine Langer all of a sudden. I don't know.
Yeah, that could be.
That was kind of
she didn't really have much to say. I mean, this sketch was pretty Bill-centric as Tony Orlando.
I guess, yeah.
Like,
I mean, you're right.
He had the most dialogue. And I really
enjoyed him.
I really enjoyed his wig.
Oh, man. It's at this point in the episode. Again, this is another one. I have nothing other than my real note on this is, holy shit. This could give the Karen Black episode a run for its money. There is nothing in this episode. No. There is no effort on anyone's part in this episode. Not the host, not the writers, not the performers. There is nothing in this episode that works or shows any sign of effort. This episode is just bad.
Yes. But my thinking is, like, this is probably the worst episode of the season, but it's not, in my opinion, far and away the worst episode of the season.
Oh, I beg to differ. If for no other reason, it probably doesn't help that it's coming at the tail end, or at least past the halfway point, where they've got better from the beginning. Midway through this season, it's been a solid episode. Even the OJ episode that we didn't love, it's a decent episode. Like, that's a quote unquote bad episode.
Yeah, no,
decent.
It's a bad episode.
It's decent. It's enjoyable. You can watch it. Yes. This is bad. How do you do a sketch with John, Bill, Jane, Garrett, and Gilda and have it be so bad?
Again, no host.
That's
right?
You don't have the host to blame. I could see if Jill Clayburgh was the host, I might have been, well, like, oh yeah, the weak host trying to anchor this. You had Jane Curtin playing a talk show host as Jane Curtin.
Yeah.
Bread and butter.
Yeah. There's just not much there.
No. But that's what we've said every sketch tonight.
Yeah.
In all aspects of the sketch.
Well, luckily, Eddie Money's going to bring us out of this funk singing 2 Tickets to Paradise. And it starts off with an amazing tambourine trick. Again, I liked this performance. He lost the jacket this time. He didn't have the jacket from before. I'm not sure if Davey Wilson was huffing glue in the back, or if they got a new video switcher.
I asked if he walked out of the show. I think Davey Wilson realized what a train wreck this was and just left midway through the show after update. First of all, I can't believe they had 4 cameras on this performance, or 5.
5. Yeah, they had 5.
Can't believe they did that. That they had enough to do 4 different quadrants of Eddie Money and then superimpose Eddie Money circle in the middle.
Yeah.
Ugh.
So you didn't like this?
No. I mean, listen.
I'm not talking about the camera tricks. I'm talking about the performance.
No. This is me falling victim of me hating this episode. And by right now, the band could have came on. I would have been pissed off, I think.
Didn't you see how much fun the guy playing the bongos was having?
Yeah.
Did that bring you no joy?
None. No, it did not. No.
The only joy I got out of this episode was Eddie Money.
I wanted to like Eddie Money. I'm not a big Eddie Money fan. This is an instance though where I knew both the songs, kind of enjoyed both the songs. I was looking forward to him playing both songs, and I left underimpressed. I mean, my only note for this performance is this is Eddie Money singing 2 Tickets to Paradise. And the video did no help.
The video was just super distracting.
Yes.
Well, luckily, I know that nothing warms your heart more than the host coming on and singing a song, especially to end the show, as Jill Clayburgh comes on to sing Serious Song in her overalls, sitting on a stool.
Has been a while since we closed a show on this. That's true.
Yeah. Again, this was another part of the show that I was like, well, maybe not every week needs to be a 90-minute show. Maybe this should have been a 45-minute show. Yeah, this was not. I did not enjoy this.
I got no notes.
You got no notes?
I got nothing. Cheryl Hardwick's on piano. That's all I got.
They didn't show her though at all, right? Or did I miss that?
When they pulled back at the end, you probably fell asleep at this point, but when they pulled back, you could see her. Because I was curious if it was Paul or not, but no, it's Cheryl.
Yeah. Well, that's it.
Thank God.
Our show. Ugh. I was not enjoying myself watching this episode.
No. Listen, you're not always going to hit home runs. You're not always going to get hits. Sometimes you're going to get shut out.
Sure.
That's what happened here.
Yeah.
I mean, again, we kind of mentioned in that last sketch, like nothing felt inspired. Nothing felt fresh. Nothing felt like it had any energy to it. Nobody felt like they wanted to be there. Like, you know what I mean? Like nothing. There was a vibe throughout the show of literally going through the motions.
Do you think Art Garfunkel just wore them down last week? Is that what it was?
I guess.
I mean, so we talked about this earlier this season, I think, how they hadn't had 3 shows in a row.
I wanted to blame this. I wanted to blame this on third in a row, and it's not.
This is the middle of 3 shows in a row.
I know.
That's a problem.
Listen, I'm going to say it. This is the worst episode we've seen so far. I'm calling it.
Out of the, what are we up to? This is episode 60, I think.
Well, 50, like that. Something like that. Yeah. Top 2 easy. This is the worst. It's this or Karen Black. And Karen Black had Hey You and it introduced Mr. Bill. Like I was trying to compare the two and I went back and it had John Prine, who somehow I think had a better performance than Eddie Money did. Anyway, regardless. No, this episode is not good.
Jill Clayburgh's episode introduced Mr. Bill, not Karen Black's. Don't give her credit for that.
But it at least had Mr. Bill.
Yeah. Let us not forget that we forget much of the Jill Clayburgh episode, her first episode.
Yeah, but we did not rank it our worst of that season.
There. All right.
We did not rank it. It's not the top 3 worst of that season.
No.
I went back and looked. And I know you're not surprisingly, which we need to talk about, that you're not enjoying season 3 as much as I am. But the fact that this is season 3 and in the middle of season 3 that this comes out, I think hurts even more.
I mean, I think that's my problem with season 3. I felt like season 2 there was some consistency throughout. Season 3, it's all or nothing. Like these
but
episodes,
that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to be all, which in season 2 they weren't.
No.
Like they're swinging for the fences more in season 3.
And
they're trying to be bigger. They're trying to be more massive. Where season 2, they weren't doing it as much.
Right.
Which to your point is why you get that more consistent output, because they had different goals, I feel like. And when you change your goals and you change how you're going after your goals, you're trying to reach higher. And when you try to reach higher and you miss, then you fall lower.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
that should be our season 3 swag right there. We'll figure that out. We'll put it on a sticker for you all.
Well, Brad, what are your best bits?
Oh God, I struggled.
That's good.
And for a long time, because I almost said 0, and then I had 0, and I went back and relooked, and I felt bad when I did on the Dick Cavett episode. I would put Nutrifix. I think Nutrifix is a solid sketch. I had to get the bad taste of the overall episode out of my mouth. Nutrifix is a solid sketch to watch.
Yeah, that's good. That makes sense.
But there is nothing else I would even remotely consider on this episode that you should watch.
No, I agree. I would maybe watch Eddie Money, but
you liked him.
I thought I did.
I wanted to like him. He just seems so subdued. I'm not familiar watching Eddie Money ever. I only know the songs I hear on the radio, but I was expecting a more lively performance out of either song.
You know Eddie Money's real last name?
Cash?
Mahoney.
Really?
It's not a stretch. How come you don't see more people with the last name Mahoney going by Money? That's easy.
Especially after Police Academy.
Right? Can we just talk about Police Academy? just 1 through 5. Let's not talk about 6 or 7.
The great Steve Guttenberg. Oh God.
Next week, we're talking about season 3, episode 15.
Thank God.
With host Christopher Lee and musical guest Meatloaf. Until then.
Yep.
Good night.
Good night.
Have a pleasant
tomorrow.
Not Ready for Primetime Podcast is a 2 Pints Productions production. Produced and edited by Brad and Gary. Thought about by Brad and Gary. Please rate and review.
Waiting so long, waiting so long, yes I do, waiting and waiting so long. Rocky back, leave tonight. Two tickets.